operated in the past in terms of not necessarily connection, but in terms of self-regulation and looking at things a little bit object. One of those things was when somebody's sitting in anger. You related back to the needs. What need is being. I guess anger would be what need is potentially being taken away, or what level
Anger,
of what
anger,
fears.
anger is there's a really important need that's not being met, or that you're worried is not going to be met in the future. If and that need is not met, but usually with anger, what also happens is there's judgment. So you could have a need that's not being met, like you're standing on the side of a cliff and you're about to fall off, and there's no railing, and it's a need for safety. You're not going to be angry at that point. But now, if somebody pushes you towards the edge of that mountain, you're going to be like, well, that person should not have pushed me. That person did something wrong. Now you're going to be angry at that person. It's still not meeting your need for safety, but also, there's probably a need for care and respect from with that person. But the anger is coming from the judgment on top of the need not being met.
And would it also be fair to say that that anger stems from like, the more of the fear of that need not being met, or the actual need not being met?
Well, I mean, we can get angry just to help us feel powerful. So if we're about to speak up, a lot of people do that. In fact, they're afraid to speak up when someone's, doing something that's annoying them, but they wait until they're really annoyed to the point that they're angry, and then they will speak up in anger. And it usually doesn't go very well. But they do that to feel a sense of power, and it helps them, they've gotten pushed enough and they've judged that person enough. So anger serves some purposes. It definitely can give you a sense of power, but it's again, you can't be angry if you don't judge somebody as doing something wrong or a should. There's no should. It's going to be very hard to be angry. Like they should or should not be doing something.
So what's an alternative method for people who, let's say, something's really annoying me, but I'm not a confrontational guy. So maybe I don't. I've been guilty of getting angry to get a point across in the past. I know that. What would be a more, I guess, nonviolent way to amp up to that, or to.
Right. It would shift because when you say I'm not a confrontational guy, you're labeling yourself in a way that's going to take away some of your power and agency. And that's what I would say is confrontation, even the word probably implies that there's some level of risk, danger, violence, abandonment that's been associated when you brought your needs up. When somebody was not meeting a need of yours and you brought it up, it led to what you call confrontation. And that confrontation was very painful for you. So if you could bring up your needs that weren't being met and the other person said, wow, that's a gift. Thank you so much. I care so much about you. I really am so grateful. Then bringing up your unmet needs would be exciting and it wouldn't be seen as confrontation. So it's more that you have an experience where bringing up your needs was not welcome in a way that feels safe and efficacious for you. So we have an episode on our podcast which is all about, it's called We Be Parents, and it's all about helping parents bring nonviolent communication in the family. And one of the shows was on what we call the gift, which is basically we taught our children that anytime we did something that they didn't enjoy, anytime we did something that didn't meet a need of theirs, when they tell us, it's a gift. And I have a whole process that we teach people this gift, and it's super powerful, super important. And that's what I would say. But in the meantime, it's for you when you're working with people that don't know how to use the gift. It's not so important what you say. It's what's important is that you're prepared to handle however the other person responds to what you say. So give me an example of something that you would be nervous to bring up and that you would say, I'm not confrontational, so I'm not going to bring it up.
Oh, well, and you know what's funny? It's always those stupid little things, right?
Yeah,
It comes
exactly.
up as not worth the fight. Uh,
Exactly.
oh, you didn't take out the trash last night when I told you to. Well, I know for a fact that you didn't tell me. Or so there you
Exactly.
see that judgment's coming up, and it's like I've said a million times.
Exactly. So those little things are actually opportunities to practice connection and bringing up your needs in a way that retells the story that you can share your unmet needs in a way that's going to increase connection, not decrease it. And If you do it when it's little, when everybody says it's too little, don't worry about it. When you do it when it's little, it's a great opportunity to practice because it's not big. If you wait till it's big, even if you use the right language, your body is probably scared and charged that the other person's going to read aggression even when you're not intending. Because 80% of the time, fear is read as aggression if you don't tell the other person, right? So if you're afraid and I see you, I'm going to assume you're aggressive because you're mobilized. Your nervous system's in fear. Mobilization of the nervous system going to look aggression. So anyway, if you brought up to your, let's say it was your partner that was saying that, I told you to bring the trash out and you didn't. So now how I would do is I would start with the same process. We call it the connection dance. The first step of the dance is self-empathy. When someone says something and assumes I'm not following through with what I agreed to, basically it's like almost saying I'm not in integrity. Like I agreed to something and didn't do it. And that they can't trust me. I want people to trust me. And then I'm not following through with what I say. That really upsets me because I really value integrity and trust and follow through. So you see how I just connected with myself, with my needs? That's why I'm upset. It's not because of what they said, it's because my needs for integrity and trust and follow through are being brought up. Then you can say to the other person, hey, now you go to curiosity. Boy, you know, I know you're saying that you told me to take out the trash and that it didn't happen. And boy, I can imagine when you tell someone to do something and they say they're going to do it and then they don't, that's so upsetting. So I get why you're upset. So I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm saying that if that's what happened, I can see why you're upset. And then I would say, hey, can I share with you what's coming up for me? So after you've empathized with them, with their reality, even if it's not your reality, their reality is that they told someone to bring out the trash and the person said they would and didn't. In that reality, you agree with them. Of course they're upset. But in your reality, you weren't told. So now you say, okay, now that I heard your reality, and they say, yeah, I get it. Can I share what's going on for me? What's going on for me is that I don't remember being told, even if you did tell me, because I really want to follow through when someone tells me to do something and I agree. So I'd love for you to see that that's important to me, even though there was some sort of miscommunication here. So can you tell me back that you're really hearing that it's important following through when I say something that's really important to me? So now you're getting back from them that reassurance that they see your good intentions. You see how I just navigated that? What did it take? 2 minutes? That's a missed opportunity if you hold it in because you don't really hold it in. It's just building up. And now you have a good experience where you're like, oh, look, I brought up a need that wasn't met, my need to be seen. I want to be seen as someone that does value these things and can be trusted to follow through. So thank you for help seeing that. And I saw the other person. They're upset because in their reality, they told someone to do something, the person agreed and didn't follow through. So I'm seeing them too. You see how that works, Chris?
Yeah, I do see how that works, and thank you for laying it out like that. Even downplaying these minimal times, I'm wondering if it's also disconnecting. Like I'm disconnecting not only like if I because some of the most popular advice out there is that when these things crop up, you kind of just you let it drop, right? Because again, you are if you don't throw the ball back, there's nothing in play, you can diffuse it, whatever, right? I mean, I forget what the name of the person was that had a negotiation 101. But what you're saying is that we're actually kind of disconnecting from ourselves because we're not acknowledging that. We're just sort of ignoring it. And we're also not connecting with the other person, which is so we're actually
Uh,
creating minor disconnects at all those points as well.
exactly. I like that point that you said that it's not even neutral, it's a negative. You're disconnecting from that person. You're reinforcing, and it's all subtle. You're reinforcing enemy image of the other person, and then you're suppressing it. You're like, oh, I can't believe they see me like that. Whatever, it's not a big deal. I'll let it go. So you have this view of them. There's a hurt in your heart. So I'm not saying you have to bring it up with them every time. You can let it go. But I would at least do the connection to yourself. Boy, when people don't see my good intentions, when people question like my integrity that I'm not trustworthy in following through, that's painful for me. Even if it's something as little as taking out the trash, because I so value it. So even if you do that internally, it's going to shift to your heart. And then you can bring it up. You can bring it up in the moment. You can bring it up later. I think those opportunities are great practice for the bigger times when the bigger events happen. And I think it's connecting, and we call these micro connections. So anytime someone meets a need, and you share that with them, it's a micro connection. Anytime they don't meet a need and you share that with them in a way that's not blaming and critical, that's also a connection. And those connections build up and really strengthen the relationship.
And one of the other things that you said, how we can build up these judgments, and again, it's not our own fault, but and self-empathy. But one of the things of the awareness is that we judge ourselves based on our intentions, but we judge others based on actions. So how do you go about sort of I guess, self-checking? Because we're kind of biased in knowing what our own intentions are, right?
So help me understand that question a little more when you say self-checking. Like what can you say that again so I can make sure I'm getting it?
No, no, for sure. And it was a little bit muddled. So we judge ourselves based on our intentions, but we judge others based on their actions. So we think we're in the right automatically, right? Because we're judging based on our intentions. So what's an easy way we can get more into a space of
Seeing
objectively
their
looking at what
intention?
we're doing? Yeah.
So are you saying like what's a good way to see their intention versus just judging their action? Yeah, so to me that's curiosity. If we're busy trying to figure out who's right and who's wrong, it's very disconnecting. But what's really helped me when I'm able to do it is to be able to say, I'm curious. Like, for example, my wife might say, why do you have tone with me? Why are you talking to me like that? And I'm thinking to myself, what is she talking about? I don't have tone. If we're busy arguing over whether I had tone or not, doesn't help. But if I can be curious and say, oh, boy, I get it. So if you heard tone coming from me, then that makes sense why you would feel hurt and a little bit offended. I get it. Now she feels better. 'Cause I'm not saying I had tone or I didn't have tone. I might say afterwards, I didn't intend for tone to come out even if that's how it was heard, but there's other times where I'm like, "Yeah, I was upset and I had tone, and I wish I communicated that differently." So I may or may not have tone, I'm checking in. I could check in and be like, "I didn't intend to have tone," or, "Yeah, I was upset, and I could see why it sounded like tone." But either way, it starts with curiosity about their experience, and that to me is what it really helps is to say, there can be more than one reality. In fact, there always is. Everything that we see and hear and we think is fact is just our perception. Do you ever see the video, the Laurel and Yanni thing that was big on the internet where there would be this sound and they'd be like, "Do you hear Laurel or Yanni?" Remember that?
Yeah.
So that's code in my family because I'm the only one that hears Laurel. Everybody else hears Yanni. So what I'll do is I'll say, "Oh, sounds like I was trying to say Laurel and you heard Yanni." So we're not arguing about whether that person is saying Laurel or Yanni. We're just saying, okay, this was your reality. This is what happened. And I can see why you're upset given your reality. And here's my reality. And here was what I was trying to do. Can you see that too? And that starts to allow us to see everybody and make room for everybody and to see their good intentions regardless of their actions.
So just in terms of connecting and being curious, do you believe that we are inherently good people that sometimes do things that look bad? Or are we inherently bad people that sometimes do things that look good?
Yeah, I don't think there's such a thing as a good or a bad person. I think there's, you know, hearts and nervous systems that are just trying to do the best they can with the resources and awareness they have at that moment. And often they do things that really contribute to life and make my life more wonderful. And frequently people will do things that don't contribute to life and don't make my life really impact me in a way that doesn't make life wonderful. And when I see the world that way, and I really believe that people are doing the best they can in that moment, even if it's not what I like, I know that my life is better. So as soon as I start thinking there's such a thing as a good person and a bad person, I'm off to making my life worse. And that's how and it doesn't mean I don't think in terms, like I said, I've been educated and socialized and conditioned to think in those terms. So I'll be like, oh, that's wrong with, and then I spend time to connect and I slow down. When I'm really self-connected, there'll be pauses. So if someone says something that stimulates me, I'm taking time to, okay, there's that check inside, and then there's that empathic curiosity of the other person. If I answer quickly, that's when I stay in the old habits and we're just going down disconnection lane.
Matthew, this has been a really great conversation. I could probably go on for hours, and we haven't even skimmed the surface on connections at all. Uh, is there anything that you wish I would have asked but didn't ask, or anything you feel we should have covered but
Yeah.
didn't cover?
Well, I think that what's important for people to hear is that this is not the right way to communicate. This is just a way to communicate that I find makes life really wonderful and brings me closer together to people because we talk about connection and how connected do you feel in your community, and people will talk about the number of friends they have, they go to date night with their partner, but it's not about that. It's about, can you share from your heart in a way that brings you closer together to the other person's heart? And how often are you suppressing little things like you brought up before, where your heart is stimulated or something's upsetting and you push it down because you don't have the safety in the connection that, to me, is essential. So I think that if people hear that this is nonviolent communication is a way to build these skills, and we do coaching with people privately, but there's also ways to we have our podcast, We Be Parents podcast, that teaches this information. We have our Substack, Connection Docs, that also gives this information. All this is free, and it's baby steps. Each week there's a something on the podcast. Each week there's an article that just helps you start to bring this in. And it's not about getting it right or being perfect. It's about starting to shift and retrain how you think, what you say and what you do. And if you can start shifting, what you say, what you think, and what you do to head towards connection, that's when life starts to become wonderful for you. Forget about the contribution to the other person. It makes your life better. That's why I keep doing it. So I hope people hear that it's not about right or wrong. It's just because once you get a taste of this, it really makes your own life better.
I like that for sure. And to all our listeners, don't worry, we are going to have those links in the show notes for you, so that you're not going to have to go looking too hard for them. Um, you talk about this being an ongoing process. Just curious, and I'm sure our listeners are curious as well. How long do you think it takes? And again, everybody's different, but how long do you think it takes to kind of start practicing before you kind of notice a difference?
Well, it's about the intention. So if your intention is to be curious, hear from your heart and be curious, that can happen, immediately, even if you don't get the words right. We actually, one other thing that I think people would like is Connectin, Kinectin, which is our AI coach that we trained. And you can work with this coach to learn and role play and, get empathy and give empathy. And, it's an app. And the more time you put in, it's like learning a new language. But you can start muddling your way through with broken English and still get a lot of mileage out of it. So to me, it's not about waiting. The perfect is the enemy of the good. And Marshall Rosenberg, the creator of NBC, used to say anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. So to me, it's, get started right now. Like just that shift that we talked about, connecting to your heart and being curious about what's going on in the other person's heart, regardless of what they said, that will get you really far.
Such a powerful sentiment, and we'll add that in the show notes as well, because it sounds like a good tool to try it out on, in case you don't want to try it on live test subjects, right?
Exactly. You could even say, what's really cool is you can talk about the situation, with, let's say it's your wife and you're like talking about it, you're complaining. It's going to empathize and connect with you using, connection language. And then you can say, hey, can you help me role play a conversation with my wife? And it can play your wife. It can play your wife with whatever persona you want. So you can say, play her really defensive or play her really guilt inducing. And then, give me coaching tips along the way. And then you can reverse role play where it'll play you and you can play the wife so that you can see how it would play you with connection skills. And you can be a really challenging defensive wife. So, it really helps you practice in a non-threatening, low stakes venue. And then you can bring what you learn to the relationship. My daughters actually use it, and then they hand me the phone. So they'll have a conversation like, "Dad, I was so mad at you, Dad." And I talked to Amari, is the name of the coach. I talked to Amari. So read the conversation so you know what's happening. And then I'll read it and my heart will soften because I get what's going on. And then I'll connect to them afterwards. So it makes it very easy for them and for me.
It's a really innovative use. I hadn't even considered it for that. In my mind, I thought that you do the role play, you go through it, and then you sort of just repeat the whole thing. But you're saying you could actually cut out the middleman, give them the conversation if it's super long and you don't have a lot of
Yeah.
contact, I guess, right?
Or you can have Amari, she'll help you draft a message, or you can say, hey, can you give me the key points of the conversation so that my partner can read this and really connect to my heart here? So she'll do whatever you ask her to do.
Excellent. I'll tell her to do my taxes right after.
I don't know how good she'll do your taxes. So empathize with your payments that you have to make.
Well, once again, Matthew, thank you so much for being on the show today and really enjoyed the conversation. And to all our listeners, thank you once again for tuning in. And just remember, if you can't find that motivation or inspiration for yourself today, maybe just go out and try to be that motivation and inspiration for someone else. And we'll see you again next time.